The further and higher up you climb, the worse it gets. The imposter syndrome. You're let past the velvet ropes into even more exclusive clubs, and the cost of membership just so happens to be crippling self-doubt. So what if we flip the phenomenon on its head and recognize that we only feel like an imposter because we know enough to understand our own limitations? That it's exactly this type of vulnerability and openness that we should expect of all of our leaders. And if you understood the value of this phenomenon, it may be the thing that takes you and your career to the next level. I'm Wang, and this is another entry in our Tips Digest series on the imposter syndrome. We've already explored how the imposter syndrome affects us at the earlier phases of a typical career. Assuming you follow the 3-stage uncertainty framework and navigated each career phase successfully, you'll be competing at another level yet again, this time as a boss, manager, or leader. When all the value and career capital you've created for yourself leads to a new job or an enormous amount of new responsibility. This should make you feel like an imposter. Why wouldn't it? Phases 1 and 2 were no cakewalk, and you've only just figured out the rules to the game before everything has now reset. This might be further than you ever thought you'd get, but sadly, the imposter never leaves. The insecurity hits you harder than ever, and you'll need a bulletproof strategy or series of strategies to deal with both new and old sources of stress and anxiety. The idea that you would ascend to the most successful point of your career that you could have ever imagined would have it ruined by crippling self-doubt and anxiety. That's a tragedy, isn't it? The good news is that the 3-stage uncertainty framework we've discussed for phases 1 and 2 of early career shenanigans still applies here. Given the higher stakes, this time I want to compare notes with a 2021 article written by the American Psychological Association, or the APA, the foremost authority on all things psychological, on how to overcome imposter phenomenon. APA describes 5 to 7 strategies in that article that can help overcome imposter feelings, with strategy 1 just being learning the facts. That's the reason I'm making this video series, really, to simply raise awareness about the existence of the imposter syndrome and that it affects and infects everyone, irrespective of career stage or trajectory. The big asterisk with this video is that I realize this is not particularly relevant for most of you. It seems a little bit like first world problems, but really it wasn't relevant for me either until very recently. I was 10 years into academia, a decade as an associate lecturer and lecturer, quite low on the academic hierarchy, when I decided to apply for the next increment up, which is a senior lecturer. Whatever next sounds like a huge reward. I was bumped up by 2 levels, skipping senior lecturer straight to associate professor, and skipping the levels precisely because I was learning new skills that have in turn redefined my value to the point where I've leveled up twice in one go. It's really rare, and it was super exciting for a week. Then the dread set in. Academia, like many other industries, is super competitive, and I never thought I would make it this far, if I'm honest. All the rules I had been working off up to that point were to survive at the bottom of the ladder, to do the best within the constraints I've been given, to do the jobs other people don't want to do. And now I was in a position of leadership, having to find extra resources to help make those constraints a little less restrictive to other people, the older version of me. It was a totally new way of thinking, and I wasn't prepared. A few months after that promotion, I was also named Australian University Teacher of the Year during COVID. Everyone looked to me for insight and wisdom and direction about teaching in a desperate time for our sector. That does sound a little bit like first world problems, but professional reputations are a funny thing. They take decades to build up, but any sense of power or prestige is a mirage. In my field, we're only as good as our last project, publication, or presentation. All the rules are different at the next level. It's chess, not checkers, and while I'm great at following other people's instructions, I've never really had to decide what instructions to give others that would then in turn decide their career and their futures. It's a scary idea. Like clockwork, the imposter came knocking, but at that point, I made peace with this feeling of insecurity. Let's go back to our 3-stage uncertainty framework. 1, the Googleables. This became a non-starter straight away. It was useless because there are fewer people operating at the high levels of any enterprise. Naturally, there is less publicly available information, and leaders tend to hold their value close to their chest. I needed then to rely exclusively on stage 2 of the framework, the mentionables, because leadership is all about asking the right people the right questions, having the soft skills to be adaptable in different situations, knowing the right questions to ask, having the connection to the right people. That's everything. Strategy 2, the mentionables, ties into the APA article's second strategy 2, share your feelings. Enlist other people in your trusted professional network and talk about your imposter feelings. Odds are others feel the same, and everyone will feel a little less lonely and hopefully a little more empathetic. There is a fine line though between sharing your insecurities and just good old-fashioned complaining or whinging, so that's where the article's third strategy comes in as well. Celebrate your successes. Collect evidence of positive feedback, emails from students, peers, or supervisors when you've had success. And this isn't just a feel-good exercise, it might actually amount to something bigger and higher profile. That's the strategy I used, compiling evidence of my teaching practices over 5 years, every email, every survey, which ultimately led me to the Australian University Teacher of the Year Award in 2020. Don't just celebrate your own successes, celebrate the success of others. It's the most rewarding part of my job to mentor students and other teachers, and it's the only thing that consistently takes me out of that introspective headspace and truly push that imposter away for as long as I can. Because of this, helping others is in many ways the most selfish thing you can do in your career. The higher you rise, the more people you can help, and the better you feel about yourself. Win, win, win. I'm very fortunate to have met many mentors who are very generous with their time. In some way, stage 3, the untouchables, became a moot point because at this level, nothing should be untouchable. You're part of determining that strategy for your organization. You're only effective at the next level if you know the internal politicking and backroom chatter through all the connections you've made in stage 2. This is the reason I talk so much about comfort zones, communication, and networking skills, because at a certain point, that's the entire game. You can only make the move from imposter to insider if you connect with the right people. The last few strategies in that APA article focus on cultivating self-compassion, sharing your failures, and accepting that the imposter is here to stay in one form or another. This is what I've consistently tried to do, not just in this Impostor Syndrome video series. You can find links to the original long-form video here, but really throughout every video I'll make on the channel. Talking about my failures publicly in these videos is my form of self-compassion, and hopefully it's helpful for you as well, because it's certainly therapeutic for me. The 3-stage uncertainty framework helped me navigate different stages of my career, but I'm certain the imposter will come knocking again at my door sooner rather than later. It's our career, if not a lifelong pursuit, to keep them at bay. I'm Jack Wang. Good luck with all of your ideas and grand plans this year. Let's aim for a fresh start and talk again soon.